What's up, investors? It's the Russian Dude and this is your daily update on Russian-Ukrainian war as of Tuesday, April 5th. And I have two major stories to talk about with you today. First is the incredible stupidity of some Russian soldiers. Just keep watching and you'll see what I mean by that. And second is the speech of President Zelensky in front of the United Nations Security Council. Things got a little heated there, so you definitely wouldn't want to miss what he said. I will also briefly present some other events and news that happened today. So, speaking about the stupidity of some Russian soldiers, here is exactly what happened. First of all, I guess it's no longer a secret anymore that some Russian soldiers steal Ukrainian stuff. They're basically martyrs, and then they try to sell it or send it back to their home countries. And so, some of you might know that Apple devices, even including headphones, allow to track themselves, which basically means that this allows to see the movements of the Russian army, because obviously one Russian soldier who stole Apple headphones will not be just walking separately. In most cases, he will be walking along with his friends and most likely even with the convoy of military vehicles. And just by tracking this one single person with stolen Apple devices, Ukrainian army is able to track the movements of entire Russian army, which obviously makes them very easy military targets. But wait, there is more. Some Russian soldiers try to send things that they stole back to Russia. And in order to do this, you need to give your full details, which includes obviously your first name, last name, date of birth, phone number, and even your address. And so, without hesitation, such delivery companies gave this personal information to Ukrainian forces, making it extremely easy to track every single martyr who did this in Ukraine. Which basically means even in case the war will be over, these people will not be able to avoid the justice. Some schools in Russia started doing patriotic classes for kids. Some Ukrainian parents started to leave their contact information on the bodies of their kids. And the reason why would they do this? In case parents are killed, kids could be at least sent to some of their relatives. This is how the face of President of Ukraine Zelensky changed in just 41 days. These were the most popular Google search trends in Russia as soon as the military operation in Ukraine has started. Russia is the third biggest supplier of thermal coal internationally, and one of the most recent sanctions that Europe is preparing against Russia is to prohibit the export of this coal from Russia. And we will talk about these sanctions in details in a minute. The President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, announced the next sanctions against Russia. First of all, there will be a ban on Russian export of thermal coal up to $4 billion per year. Next is complete ban of 4 Russian banks, including VTB. The third one is that container shipments from Russia and Belarus are no longer able to dock in ports of Europe. The fourth one is that European countries are no longer allowed to sell semiconductors, cars and car parts to Russia worth of 10 billion euros per year. And the fifth one is that Russian companies are no longer able to participate in European government tenders. According to the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, these are approximate losses that the Russian army has suffered since the beginning of this military operation. To be more specific, approximately 18,500 Russian soldiers were killed, 676 tanks were destroyed, and 150 planes were hit. And if you are interested in getting more details, feel free to pause this video and ask me for translation in the comments. For the very first time since the beginning of the war, the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky was speaking in front of Security Council of the United Nations. And even though some Western countries do indeed help Ukraine, it is still not enough, he says, which basically made his speech to be a little bit heated. And these are the main statements that he said during this speech. First of all, Russians who did a massacre in Bucha are war criminals. Besides killing Ukrainian civilians, they are also raping women, killing children and destroying cars with tanks. And it is not just about Bucha. Some other major cities in Ukraine right now are in ruins. Zelensky also mentioned that no matter what, the Russian side will always deny every single fact, calling everything that happened in Bucha and across Ukraine a fake. He also said that the Russian army behaves itself like a colonizer in the old ancient times. They are destroying villages, killing civilians, murdering and stealing. He was also urging the United Nations to take way more active role in this military conflict, because in case Russia and Ukraine will continue solving their problems using weapons and killing each other, there is no even need to continue the existence of the United Nations. He says that what's the point of having the United Nations, because Russia already broke so many laws and there is literally no need for other laws for them to be followed. And he was also threatening Russian officers and generals, those who are giving these orders to kill peaceful civilians, that they will be prosecuted just like Nazis did in Nuremberg trials. sanctions. And President Zelensky ended his speech saying that the United Nations have only two possible outcomes. The first one is to finally do something meaningful to stop Russia, or the second one is to terminate the United Nations because they're useless. But besides the President Zelensky, the Russian representative to the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, also had something to say to the Security Council. First of all, he said that Russia has hundreds and even thousands of witnesses who can confirm the presence of Nazis in the territory of Ukraine. Second, he mentioned that the Russian army does not lead the war in the same way as Americans did in Iraq, which basically means what he says here is that the Russian army does not bring entire cities to ruins. And because of this, he says, the military operation takes a little bit longer than expected because the Russian army does not target civilian buildings. The fourth thing that he mentioned is that all the accusations of Ukrainian army against Russians are completely unjustified. And another thing Vasily Nebenzia mentions is that the Russian main goal is still to eliminate Nazis from Ukraine. And finally, he mentions that Russian army has all the proof and evidence that Ukrainians were about to do a military intervention in Donbass. In this video you can see the condition of the city of Borodyanka, Ukraine. And in this video you can see the tank battle that is happening on the streets of completely ruined Mariupol, Ukraine. In today's press conference, the President Vladimir Zelensky mentioned the requirements which he thinks that Ukraine must achieve in order to win this war. First of all is to not lose any of its territories and to not allow hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians to be killed. Speaking about sovereignty, he said that Crimea is a historical part of Ukraine and eventually Ukraine will return this peninsula back to its original territories. He also said that Donbass region is very important to Ukraine. And the next requirement the army of Ukraine must meet in order to win in this war is that the Russian army must retreat back to its positions which they held on February 23rd. In this chart you can see the seized yachts of Russian oligarchs. For example, the most expensive yacht detained at this very moment is the yacht which belongs to Igor Sechin, which is valued approximately at $600 million. Many Russians are very unhappy with the military operation in Ukraine, and in this specific video you can see one Russian person from Kostroma trying to destroy Z letter installation. This guy did an individual protest in Russia, raising the awareness of civilians massacre in Bucha. Just like in every other country in the world, marodeurism in Russia is a criminal activity. But as of recently, Russia has removed marodeurism from its criminal code, which basically means all these Russian soldiers who steal things and send them back to their own country, obviously doing marodeurism, are no longer criminals. It is estimated that approximately 40% of Russians do not have much savings. And just to give an example how bad the situation is on Ukraine, Ukraine has approximately 4.4 million refugees, which escaped the country in just little over 1 month. The population of the city of Bucha, Ukraine, was estimated to be around 30,000 people in 2021. And now, after Bucha massacre, it is reported that there are only 3,700 residents left. Early morning today, the President Zelensky had an interview with one of the Ukrainian TV channels. The topic for conversation was obviously war with Russia, and these are just some of the main statements that he made. First of all, he mentioned that due to most recent events in Bucha, it will be extremely hard to keep negotiations with Russia, but they have no other choice. He also said that Ukraine will keep looking for those responsible for all the military crimes, and they will be prosecuted. The next thing Zelensky mentioned is that Ukraine continues to look for international support, but they're only interested in those groups and parties and countries who are ready to do something and not just talk. The next thing Zelensky was talking about is that it will be very hard to arrange in-person meeting between him and President Putin because of most recent events in Bucha. And the last thing he was talking about is about the region of Donbass, specifically territories of Lugansk and Donetsk. Vladimir Zelensky mentioned that it will be almost impossible to agree on every single term since the beginning, but both countries will work hard towards achieving mutual goals. Airbnb announced today that it will prohibit people who live inside Russia and Belarus from renting any property in their website. People from outside of these two countries will also no longer be able to rent anything inside Russia or Belarus. It looks like that the Russian currency ruble has finally stabilized in its exchange rate against US dollar. Just as a reminder, at the very peak, for $1 US, people were ready to to give approximately 140 Russian rubles. But during the next couple of weeks, the price for dollar has decreased to approximately 85 rubles. And as you can see at this very chart, the exchange rate between US dollar and Russian ruble was approximately in the range of 83 to 85 rubles for the last couple of days. This is the way the Russian stock market reacted after the next batch of sanctions were announced by European Parliament. Today, Google has removed the website of the Ministry of Defense of Russia from its search database, which in fact is a very strong confrontation from Google's side. Because imagine if Google and YouTube was threatened to be banned just because they deleted couple of videos from Russian propaganda, what will happen if they will not restore the access to the Ministry of Defense website? Kazakhstan announced that it will not recognize the independence of Lugansk and Donetsk. The Minister of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan, Timur Silimanov, mentioned that yes, they know that Russia wants Kazakhstan to be their friends, but Kazakhstan also respects the sovereignty of Ukraine. And by the way, if you like this style of daily news reporting, feel free to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for your attention, stay safe and see you tomorrow.